The goal seems to always be grow your company and sell it. Is that good or bad?
Biggest problem is that they extract the value where the entrepreneurs create the value.
But wait, you sold your business.
Yes, I do regret selling my business, but I had to learn by making some of the mistakes the first time around and then saying, how can I cultivate these lessons?
How do you design a life that you don't want to retire from?
If problems are bigger than the vision, it eats us up.
So you mean the pursuit of money isn't everything?
We have these amazing, talented entrepreneurs that create value and venture capitalists that extract value, and they're selling the entrepreneur a lie.
So what does that mean? Like,
if we have money devoid of purpose, that's pretty dangerous.
okay, I'm building a business. The goal seems to always be grow your company and sell it. Is that good or bad?
One thing that's kind of a conundrum is I just had someone here at this table say, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of unpack that.
Yeah.
Because I guess we have to define growth. What if growth included feeling of satisfaction and fulfillment, or growth included quality of life or health, or, deepening relationships with customers, not just revenue, not just profit? Because sometimes there's this line of demarcation, right? And it's like, here's a business someone loves. And then we get here, it becomes very corporate.
Yeah.
And when it becomes corporate, it might lose a sense of that nostalgia, that, just the connection, and it becomes more about KPIs and numbers and less about people.
Yeah.
This is kind of what happened with the company that I sold, is I felt like we just got to a place where I didn't get to know the people. I didn't get to experience, like I used to look at my business as like this canvas that I could use as a way to create value. But eventually it just became this thing that, was being done just to grow.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the biggest risks that businesses have is if they're just building to sell. The issue is, what if it's the very thing that they're best at? What if it's the business that they love? What if they really enjoy it? But greed kicks in. Mm-hmm. There's like a little factor of like, ooh, I sold my business. That's like, that's a cool thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Even though 75% of people that sell their business regret it. There's a lot of greed when we start to see venture capital get involved, because venture capital, they're known as snakes, and they're really value extractors, where the entrepreneurs are the value creators. And often the value extraction happens because they just start to charge more. They water down the services, or, they pump up the numbers so that hopefully they can roll it up and get another exit. And so they really try to get this number and make that really exciting to the entrepreneur. But the thing is, now it's no longer about the employees. Now it's no longer about the customers. It's just about some number.
Yeah.
And what they often do is kind of like try to attract that entrepreneur by telling them how great they are and how great their business is. And then as soon as they start looking at the numbers, they tell them they're the ugliest girl at the ball. And, they're like, wait, I thought I was great. And it's a really emotionally damaging situation. But the biggest problem is that they extract the value where the entrepreneurs create the value.
Yeah.
And it's through greed that extraction process happens. It's through this romantic story about, ooh, you could sell your business and then you could do everything that you want. But the thing is, a lot of times what they want to do is the actual business. That's where they feel important. That's where they add value. That's where they feel connected. And now when they sell it, now what are they supposed to do with it? Now you do with all the money. Now it goes into the market. It goes into things they don't know about, things they don't have control over, things that they don't have influence with, things that they don't know how to deliver value. And it becomes an interesting situation that we basically retire someone from their best ability.
Oh, gotcha.
Right? They're becoming more wise. They have more insight. They have more to give as they grow. And then all of a sudden they sell. Now what? Now go put it in the public markets, diversify. How many long meals can you have? How much time can you sit on the beach before you get bored? I mean, I think this is part of why my entire philosophy is create a life you don't want to retire from. Enjoy the process along the way. Design a game worth playing you've already won. Design a business that you'd want to stick with, not get rid of.
How do you design a life that you don't want to retire from? People get tired of what they're doing. They feel days on the job that are just like, oh my gosh, I want out of this.
Yeah, delegate, but you delegate roles, not tasks.
Yeah, explain. What's the difference?
Okay, so a task is like a boomerang. It comes back around asking you what to do next. Hey, file this. Hey, do that. Hey, take care of this. Where a role is like, okay, you're responsible for this objective, do whatever it takes to meet that objective. You know, it's like if I tell my kids, hey kids, clean your room, take out the garbage, take care of the yard. Those are tasks. If I'm like, you're in charge of the orderliness and cleanliness of the home, that's a role.
Yeah, gotcha.
Right.
So then they have autonomy within that zone.
Then build a team that you love. Find people that you love working with that inspire you. Like I like talking to the team. When I get on the phone with Mike or Alex or Bobby or Trisha or Andrew or Tim or you or, you know, it's like Steven, it's like, it's a team that I enjoy being around.
Yeah.
It's so you learn to delegate so that you offload the things that, hey, if you're going to get wealthier and be more successful within your business, what would you have to stop doing that you're currently doing? And what would you have to start doing more of that you're not doing enough of? And that stop doing is where you start delegating. And then when you have the right team members, you can truly offload things because you can trust them. You can count on them. The buck stops with them. It's not like you're hiring the cheapest person that's not competent and all of a sudden you have to micromanage it and it's exhausting and that's why you want to retire. So part of it is you've got to have the type of vision that you actually are compelled by. Beyond your current capability, beyond your current reach. And the thing is, if the vision is just to exit, venture capitalists will come along with a very seductive story.
Yeah.
But you got to consider what's the cost when they extract that value, when they pay you that money. What's next for you? And will that be fulfilling? Do you enjoy that? So when you have a really great vision, I think that you've got to take breaks along the way. Like find the things that you enjoy. Find a hobby, you know, find something that you get to go and do and then come back to the business that you're in. Find ways, again, if you have the right team and you can delegate and you have the right vision that's compelling to you, you'll deal with some of the minutia. Like if our vision is bigger than our problems, right? If vision is a lot bigger than the problems, we find a way.
Yeah.
If problems are bigger than the vision, it eats us up.
And that's when people want to retire.
Yep. It's like, okay, I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore. So vision's the rarest commodity in the world. It tells our brain what's important, what to pay attention to. And if we create a compelling enough vision that's beyond our current reach, that allows other people to support us as well, that we could dedicate our life to, like that's, you know, if I want to liberate 1 million people to become financially independent and change their family's financial future and destiny and help them create a lasting legacy, well, that's not something I can do alone. That's not something that's going to happen in a short period of time. And it's, you know, it's something that's compelling to me. I have to learn new skills. I have to build a team. I have to figure out ways to get there. And that's kind of like a fascinating yet frustrating at times situation, but the vision's bigger than the problem. So I continue forward. When I sold my business and I took a jaunt doing comedy, the comedy was super fulfilling and fun. But when I was like, God, I want to be a road comic, then I had this like really weird place where I didn't know what was next. And it was very, I don't know, it was boring at times. And it was concerning at other times, but it was definitely not fulfilling because I wasn't playing a game worth playing. I was just playing like okay, I've got cash and I've got the stuff that I've wanted to buy. Now what game? Yeah. And then, now what was, hey, I like to teach. I like to film these videos. I like to write. I like to be up to something. I like to meet new people. I like to learn from people. Like, what's a game that allows me to do that? Well, that's why I created Multiplier. And I don't want to sell Multiplier. Because as soon as I sell it, because when I know with my last company, I saw that they immediately went against the things that I would teach. They start teaching stuff like, oh, skip your coffee and you can save that money. Or, they start selling assets under management because there's more money in it. And so it's like, here's someone I thought wouldn't have done that, but they did. And so I want to keep this alive with my values, with the vision that I have, with the team that I bring on board, and then find ways to enjoy life along the way by having hobbies and taking some time off, but being excited to come back to everything I'm up to because, it's something that I want to do. That's the game worth playing. But if we're uncertain about that, or we get stuck in the grind, or we're just trying to pump up the numbers, or we get venture capitalists involved and they say, we're going to give you this huge sum of money. We feel like that sum of money somehow represents like us and we want that. And then we get it and we go, wait, this was more hollow than I expected.
I think the gut reaction is, oh, boo-hoo, you made millions and millions of dollars and you're complaining to me about it.
But I'm just saying more than anything, Weston, is like we have these amazing, talented entrepreneurs that create value and venture capitalists that extract value, and they're selling the entrepreneur a lie. And then we lose all the talent and ability of the entrepreneur because they give it to venture capital, which isn't good for the end customer, right? Not great for the employees. And so ultimately nobody wins. And we're going to end up with this place that it's filled with, corporations that we don't love utilizing because we lost the very people that were the soul and the backbone of it, that had the creativity and the innovation and that actually gave a shit instead of just looking at numbers on a piece of paper. And that's the issue I have.
It sounds like you just described Disney. Disney used to make some of the best movies, right? Looking at the movies that have come out recently, it's just they're lifeless. It's all run by, penny pinchers and number crunchers.
Right. And sometimes if we just end up looking at the numbers, right? We look at an income statement and we're like, ooh, look, we could lower expenses. We can raise income by doing that, but actually lowering expenses actually could lower income because maybe it's the right employee, maybe it's the right process or technology, and so part of it is we have to look at investing, not just as dots on a piece of paper or numbers on a piece of paper, but as people, but as, like everything from the employees to the customers, to the vendors. And I think about all these relationships, there's riches in relationships. And if all of a sudden, where you've been creating value, you retire from value creation, then what? What does the world miss out on that? Yeah. Now, I think it's smart to build a business that could be sold, but maybe you don't sell it. Because fall in love with that business, fall in love with what you do, find ways to delegate, find the right people to work with. I think if you have the wrong people in there, you might want to sell it quickly. If you're doing things that you hate just because it was a way to make money, maybe you want to get rid of that because it's not the right thing for you. And some people just, when they buy businesses or they start businesses, it's benign to them. They don't look at any level of enjoyment. They don't look at any passion. They just look at what do the numbers say? And those are probably the types of businesses to buy and sell. But what if it's like something you invent? What if it's like me writing a book or inventing Multiplier, which is a financial gym essentially, where there's a regular coaching program and it's very unique and it's like it's part of my DNA and I enjoy the process of building it. I don't want to sell that because as soon as I do, now it's someone else's vision. Now it's someone else thinking, oh, we could charge more or we can offer less or we could do whatever because they're looking at just at the numbers. And, there's a certain level of market that will kind of allow those numbers to only go to a certain place, right? Yeah. If you move it too much, then, people stop joining or they drop off. But I think that often it's more of a value extraction process with venture capital than it is a value creation process. And so why not work with the people that you love, meaning even your customers? Choose the people, like when people come do Cash Cabin with me and they sit at this table, it's people that I want to have a lifelong relationship with. Someone I'll open up my whole Rolodex to. Someone I know I can give a 10x return and I can truly get to know them at the deepest level and watch them have aha experiences and feel super connected to them. My wife's like, you're always more motivated. You're always like really enjoying those. When you come back, you're happier. Yeah, I like to stay connected. It's not a highly leverageable model. It's not a sellable model. It's just in my DNA. And so part of that is, what is it that you want? What are the things that you want to do? Where do you want to learn and grow? Look at Rogan. He gets to interview people that he wants to interview. He gets to learn from them and he gets paid very well to do it because he's extraordinary at it. And then he has a comedy club because he loves doing comedy. Like he just designed a life that he doesn't want to retire from. Yeah. Well, even like Warren Buffett, he's 94, 95 and he's not retired. Right. He loves to allocate capital. It's just like a gift that he has, but he also knows what he's not good at. And I think the problem is when people get stuck in the grind, when they think that they'll just put Herculean effort to grow something, that's when they get to a place that they want to sell because it's exhausting, because they feel like they've sacrificed so much, because they're doing things that they hate. And sometimes it's because there's like an 18-month window where they really try to grow it. Right? Where they just like, I'm going to give this so much, we're going to grow it, then we can sell it because they pump the numbers up. But that could be exhausting. That could be frustrating. That could be like so focused that there's not time for anything else. And when there's not time for anything else, often that leads to divorce or burnout, or that leads to wanting to exit, or that leads to it being alienated with kids, or that leads to not having deep relationships because everything is just work, work, work. And yes, you can put that effort to possibly get that exit. But the question is, what could you put effort into that you wouldn't want to exit because it's part of your DNA. It's part of where you want to gain that wisdom, where you want to grow, where you want to learn, where you want to invest your time, where you want to, do those things from day to day. And yes, you'll still put up with the bullshit that happens along the way because it's worth it, because it matters to you. And I think that that's maybe one consideration. It's not, it's not to say that just because you're passionate about something that it's going to work. It might not work at all because your passion might be more of a hobby than it is a value creation or a business. And so passion alone isn't enough, because people could passionately run in the wrong direction, right? People could have passion cloud their judgment because that high emotion could take away logic. But at the same time, it might be the thing that bridges the gap, and they take this leap beyond where they're currently at because they do have a level of interest and desire. And when we have purpose focus us with that, and when purpose drives the way and it's profitable as well, I think there's more sustainability to that kind of a model.
If a person builds up a business, venture capitalists buy it, that person now has nothing else to do with their money, and they put their money into basically venture capitalist funds. And,
right, either stocks or private capital, right? And by the way, they had all of this knowledge in their business. So I call that investor DNA. They can kind of look and say, well, they know that industry, and now all of a sudden they get this huge sum of cash. And what do they do with that cash? Well, if that cash is now going to things they have zero knowledge around, right? Because they don't have the network, right? They don't have the right people. They don't have the wisdom that they learned over the years. They don't have, they don't have an understanding of the exit strategy, or, even like they don't understand the human capital required to make it work, or whatever it is. It's like all of a sudden they have exponentially more risk. And because they have an increased sum of cash from the sell, now they have to learn a whole new life. What do they do to invest that money? Where do they even bank? Because maybe it's a huge sum of money, and like, what do you do to protect that? And now you're meeting with, a lot of financial people to kind of put that in order. And what's next? I'm not saying that no one should exit. I'm just saying that if you're going to exit to venture capital, part of the time they'll pay you a percentage, and then they'll say, hey, we hope for a second exit, and then you get another percentage. So if you stay involved, then you help us out. But maybe you don't like how they operate. Maybe you don't align in the values, because that's what a lot of people don't look at. What are the values you have? What are the values of venture capital? Because that might just be that they want the biggest number possible at any expense. And maybe they invest in 10 companies, right? And maybe 7 of those, well, they don't do very well, so they just kill them. But then let's say that there's 3 left. And let's say 2 are doing pretty good, and 1 is doing fantastic, right? What they're going to do is they're going to kill the 2 that are okay and go with the one that's fantastic, because they're looking for that unicorn. They're looking for that one with huge return. And so you might have lost all your freedom if you were still involved. You might got a lump sum of money, but what did that lump sum cost you? What did that cost you? Freedom? Peace of mind. Maybe you have this great, sum of cash, but now you've got to learn to invest it. And what if you invest in things you don't know and understand and lose some of it? Now what if you feel like you're an employee, and most entrepreneurs are kind of unemployable. So now you're stuck in a system that you don't like, with the values that aren't aligned, doing things that you didn't want to do in the name of looking for that second mountain, that next one, that next lump sum that comes in, that they're saying, hey, we've got to hit these numbers and we got to hit these targets. And so you thought, oh, I'll be able to relax. But actually you're working harder than ever, doing things that you don't like, and maybe you don't agree with the people because you've lost control. And that loss of control becomes frustrating if you feel like maybe the employees aren't being treated right.
Especially if it's a team that you built up and you loved them, and now you don't have any control over it.
Or what if you don't like how they treat the clients? Right? Like, I think of, I've worked with a ton of dentists, and they sell out to corporate dentistry, and they're supposed to get this second payout, but the stock value they say isn't worth anything, and it's private, so it's harder to prove. And they've gotten in lawsuits with them, and it's like, how could you be worth so much less now that you bought all these practices just because you had a cash flow issue? But a lot of times there's too much patient turnover because they go to so corporate that you lose the feel of what it was like to go into the dentist.
Gotcha. So then the company itself loses value,
right?
And
Because
so your second buyout is worthless, basically.
Right. And so there's always that second thing that people are going for, like, ooh, even more money, and they got that first buyout. And I just know I have friends that have taken the money from venture capital, and I just haven't had many that are like, that was great. I've had a lot say they regretted it. It was even worse. They had a working agreement they had to continue with. They had to kill some of the offices, like just different things like that. And I just think venture capital, there's a reason they earned the name Snake. These Wall Street bros that are just trying to pump up the value at all costs. And sometimes that cost is you, sometimes that cost is the people that work with you, and sometimes the cost is the people that you serve, and even the industry. Some of the best talent gets pulled off the table by people that don't know how to actually create it. They just know how to pump the numbers up. Like, that's infuriating to me, because I want the best value. I want the people that are actually, in love with what they do and have a passion for it, and are always looking in an innovative way and creative ways to provide more, instead of just take money off the table, instead of just extraction. So that's a totally different game. Value creation or value extraction, right? So, like, don't let the entrepreneur create all this value just for the VC to take it off the table. Like, that's what's frustrating to me. And that's where we get less kind of variety. That's where things become too much like chain stores and, all that kind of stuff, which I just like having something that's a little bit more unique. I like to have, the mom and pop shops. I want them to be profitable. Maybe get a second location, third location. Great, but not 100 locations and just become, McDonald's, which isn't even real food. It's like, cool. That's what it was. Like, how do we make this as cheap as possible? And even if we're killing people, just keep franchising the shit out of it. There's a perfect example of an issue.
So what's the medicine? What would you, recommend to people that you've seen going through similar experiences?
So leadership, that would have been my first thing. One, I was too immature thinking I was a team player. And so you've just got to be so calculated.
What do you mean thinking you were a team player?
Letting someone in there that I didn't enjoy working with, governed by scarcity, that we didn't share the same values.
And so you're saying because you didn't push back,
I didn't push back.
Gotcha.
And then eventually that just pushed everybody away.
Yeah.
Right. So it requires leadership. It requires clarity and vision. Right? Like, what is the business that you want to create? What are the things you enjoy doing? What do you want to contribute? Who could help you do the things that you don't want to do so you can still add more value? I think of like some of my early mentors, like Dan Sullivan's in his 80s, was strategic coach. He's still teaching because he loves to do it. He has more money than he would need or he's ever going to spend, but he found a way to create the life he didn't want to retire from. He's a 10 quick start on the Colby profile. So that means he's an idea machine. So he has an infrastructure around him that he can be the idea machine, and those ideas get executed without him getting dragged into all the minutiae and details that would destroy his soul and have him hate what he was doing. See, he just designed it in a way, and he kind of has this thing where he talks about these 4 levels. Like, when people do what they're incompetent at, they're definitely going to procrastinate if they ever get it done. Then they do things they're competent at, but it drains their energy. Then they might even do things that they're excellent at, but the problem is it doesn't provide enough energy, so it becomes the trap. It's where the ceiling is. They don't know anyone else that can do it better, so they just do the things and then they wear thin. But when he says, if you find things you're unique at, that's where you build a sustainable business that you want to continue with. You do the things that you love to do, and you offload and delegate the other things. And it takes time to get there. But if you can get there, then why leave that? Why go? Like, what would you do with a lump sum of money? So maybe you're in a business where you have $100K a month, of recurring revenue, and maybe you could sell that business for $5 million, but now you got to take that $5 million and invest it. So, maybe, and by the way, it's probably going to be taxable unless it's a municipal bond. So that $5 million can be super attractive, but this $100K recurring revenue, who knows what other lump sums of money are coming in and what that might increase to over time. So you have to say, well, how do I create this cash flow? Well, maybe it's pretty easy to create $100,000 a month with that. Maybe it's not. $5 million. If you could even get 10%, you're basically looking at, a lot less than the 100K a month. So it's like, hey, that recurring revenue is kind of nice. And guess what you have on that? You have some influence. You have some control. You have some tax benefits.
So it's kind of more of like, instead of worshiping at the table of, profits and cash, it's worshiping at the table of cash flow.
Well, more than anything, of value. Of living a life based upon creating value. And so if you have a business that you don't love and you want to sell it, figure out what that next chapter is for you, because you might have a ton to contribute, and go take the trips, enjoy life along the way, find ways to relax, rejuvenate, and have some recreation, not just being in the grind. This is why so many people want to sell, is because if they've been, a founder that's like sleeping on the floor and, reinvesting every single dollar and raising capital, those are tough businesses. But there's so many businesses that bootstrap, right? They just find ways to create cash flow, and they just have that build the business, and it takes time. But as they have more and more cash flow over time, like, if I start a business that I didn't enjoy, selling it might make a ton of sense. But if I start a business that I enjoy, it's about, how do I continue that joy for that business? How do I continue enjoying what I do? And that way I still grow the wisdom and I grow the cash, instead of exiting, letting go of all the wisdom, right? Sorry, I always write down in my journal, let go, let God. So that's why it says let God. But if all of a sudden, it's I let go of all that wisdom, and now I have to go be an investor, where am I going to invest?
Yeah.
There's tons of risk. Tons of people lose a lot of money because they just got rid of the thing they knew the most about. And now they got this lump sum of money they have to deploy. And now they're just going to trust, I guess, other financial people. And maybe that's in their best interest. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's going to work. Maybe it's not. I see far too often people lose.
So you mean the pursuit of money isn't everything in all things?
I mean, dude, money is great. Like, for sure. Mm-hmm. But if we have money devoid of purpose, that's pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
That could lead to discontent. That could lead to destruction.
Yeah.
That could lead to, I'll just keep going with these, a bunch of dismay. It's just a place where maybe people don't feel worthy, where people don't feel excited, where they feel like, what's life about anyway? Yeah. But like, when we can make purpose profitable, when money's a byproduct of living your values, of being a value creator, of serving others, of solving problems, and of allowing other people to come be part of that vision, because people are dying to be part of a vision. They're dying to be part of a company where like, this matters, it's meaningful, and I'm part of something bigger than myself. And I get to use my skill sets and be paid for those skill sets, because I don't want to make the decisions of which building to buy if we need a physical location, or looking at the spreadsheets of figuring out where to deploy capital. A lot of people don't want to do that. They want to do something else. And if someone can provide that container for them, if someone can provide that work life for them, and if someone actually cares about the people that they work with and pours into them where they feel like, oh, this is a great place to be, they're adding, life to their years. And if instead it just becomes so corporate that it's just so boring and mundane, and it's so much about how do we minimize what we pay someone just to maximize the profitability, then ultimately, I don't really think anyone wins. There are a few people that end up with a lot of money, and a lot of people that end up with a little that hate what they do. And so what if you could create something that's so compelling that people love working with you? They love to be part of it. It feels like family to them. It feels like this is so exciting. They feel like they're cared for, that they're invested in. And you get to do the things that you enjoy, and you get to grow your skill sets. And as you do that, you're rewarded with a bigger business that's actually offering more value in the marketplace, instead of just selling out to the snakes, instead of just giving everything to the venture capitalists who don't actually care. They're just looking at the paper. They don't know the culture. They don't understand these people's lives and what they've been through and what they want to contribute and who they are. And it's like, man, that's what really could be something special. So instead of just looking to exit, think, what could you build that's truly special, that people would love to be part of, that's a vision so compelling you could dedicate your life to it, that helps you to grow your skills and the people that work with you grow their skills, and that everybody wins in that place. Not just you, not just the employees, but also the customer, because they're part of an organization that feels special, where they feel seen and heard and cared for. That's the game I want to play. I don't want to give that away to someone that's not going to do the right things, or that's just going to try to extract as much money as possible, or kill a few of the companies because they weren't profitable enough and they just picked the one that's a unicorn and let everything else die on the vine. Like, that's a broken, shitty, terrible model.
Yeah. So you've had a lot of people here at this very table that probably wanted to sell their business. I've
had some sell their business.
Okay.
I've had some want to sell their business, and I've had others that, they just love what they do. They want to make sure that they don't burn out.
And what was kind of your counsel? Did you discourage some of them from selling their business? Did you help them? Did the ones who sold them feel bad?
I want to go through and figure out, like, why do they want to sell their business?
Yeah. Okay.
Is it just because the lump sum of money? Is it because the story sounds cool? Or is it because they're no longer feeling like the business is a good representation of who they are, or the canvas where they want to create value? So it comes down to the individual person, because for some, it did make sense to sell the business.
Gotcha.
For others, it was really just they had a bad apple as a executive in their firm, and that was just stressing them out, and they didn't know how to handle it. And so by handling that, all of a sudden everything changed and opened up. For others, it was just that they were dealing with so much stress and it had gotten so big that they didn't know what to do about it. And again, they just were undercapitalized with talent, and so much was landing on their shoulders because they were built for a certain level of business. And now that it had gone beyond that, it was a new skill set that they didn't have. So they had to choose. Do you want to hire that skill set and find that? Or do you want to sell this and do something different? So again, it all came down to, what do they really want? And my job was to ask them the questions to get to the core of what they wanted, not just the surface, not just what everybody said would be a good idea, or not just because there was a good number out there, or not just because they thought it might be the right thing because that's what people do. I was like, well, what is it that you want? And we had to remove all that distraction and all that noise to get to the core of that, so that then they could come from a place of power and from a place that's congruent with who they are, not just a story someone's told them.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it's really a very kind of internal approach to what's the reason why a person would want to sell.
And I know people that have just been tortured with the decision. Do I sell outright? Do I sell part of it and retain certain equity? And, what do I do? And it's like, and they're in misery trying to figure that out. So having the right person to have a sounding board and talk that through, that isn't getting paid on the exit, or isn't have a vested interest on whether they exit or not. The vested interest is someone pays me and I'm just there to be their advocate. A lot of people get referred to me because they're selling a business or they're about to sell a business. So it is a conversation that we have quite often. Unfortunately, a lot of people end up hiring me after they sell the business, and, they would have done things differently. We would have planned a little bit more about what the next phase of life would be, or they might not have sold the business at all, or at least they would have saved some taxes. But it is a seductress. It is super exciting to think someone wants to buy your business and there's going to be a lump sum of money. But the question is, then what? And why are you doing it? And, is there ways to solve that without selling it? And is there ways to sell it and actually land softly and do the things that you want to do? Because it's different when all of a sudden the phone stops ringing. It's different when all of a sudden you're not the center of the universe of the business, and all of a sudden you got to figure out what the next phase of life is. So that's why a lot of people get sad, frustrated, depressed when everybody's like, what do you have to complain about? You just got millions of dollars. Well, it's all threshold. It's all perspective.